Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Dominaria. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, that's Paul Cheon, and it is our pleasure to bring you coverage of Booster Draft here on Pro Tour Friday. We've got two players down in the feature match area. One of them definitely not playing his first Pro Tour, and the other one definitely playing his first Pro Tour. It's Luis Scott-Vargas versus Josh Vitullo. They are all set. Let's head on down for round number one here from Pro Tour Dominaria. Hello and welcome back to coverage here at Pro Tour Dominaria. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Paul Cheon, and we are all set for round one action here. Paul, this is, of course, all the prep work has been done. The players have now drafted their decks. They've got their constructed decks sitting in their backpack, but this is where it all comes to a head. It is time to actually fight it out and see who's going to win round number one, get things started correctly. Down in the feature match area, we have Josh Vitullo. Take a look at Josh here. And boy, he's got his hands full here. I'm not going to lie. This is his first Pro Tour ever. Josh top-aided, or won a PTQ, excuse me, at GP Hartford relatively recently for this event. And he sits across now from Luis Scott-Vargas to kick things off. Perhaps one of the most famous and popular players in our game, and also one of the game's best, historically speaking. So Josh is, it's not going to be easy for him, though a good start for him here. He has a Knight of Malice, and against Davin and Trapper, it looks pretty good.
Right, and the Knight of Malice gets pumped whenever any player has a white permanent. So Luis playing that Trapper did mean that Josh got to get in for 3 points of damage there.
There's island number 3 for Luis. Does he have what we no, he doesn't. He has a Quende, but that seems fine. It is a historic card as well, so it's going to trigger the Trapper, tap down the Croson Druid, and allow Luis to attack in for 3 damage. Now, Quende has double strike, Knight of Malice, first strike. So if Luis wants, he could consider a trade, although it doesn't look like he's going to get that option, as Vicious Offering is going to kill Quende pre-combat and clear the way for an attack for 5.
Yeah, this is going to be tough. Luis's deck really only can play one way. It's really just looking to kind of go off to the races. If we kind of look back at his draft, did not have a whole lot of removal, not a whole lot of ways to interact.
He needs something really powerful right here, and he looks like he's got a handful of islands as well as a Merfolk Trickster and a Arcane Flight. So we're going to see the, I'm going to let you attack, but then I'm going to go ahead and play the Merfolk Trickster, and that would allow it to trade off for the Knight of Malice.
Yeah, that's very nice. Merfolk Trickster removes all abilities from a creature, so the Knight of Malice no longer has first strike, which is the big part there.
Yeah, and interestingly, of course, Luis had options, right? He could also tap down a creature before combat to prevent it from entering combat at all. But when you're behind like Luis is, he's very interested in trading off these cards here.
Absolutely.
Now the follow-up play,
Whoa.
boy, Josh Vitullo, he brought the beef.
That's big.
Steel Leaf champion for Josh. Now, that card can be pretty difficult to cast in Limited, but he found the 3 forests, and boom, he's got a 5/4. It's pretty difficult to interact with, and you see Luis surveying the scene as he takes a minute. He's in a tough position here. He really needs to find some action. He'd love to see maybe Divination or that type of card off the top of his library, but his library has not been kind to him. He didn't find it. He's got 3 lands and an Arcane Flight.
Wow.
Ouch. Going to have to play the defensive Arcane Flight.
This feels real bad. Yeah, he needs a way to keep, basically block that Steel Leaf champion, and he's basically saying, look, I got nothing.
I'll get 2 for 1, and any removal spell, any interaction, pump spell, anything from Josh Vitullo would almost certainly seal up the game at this point, as Luis is completely out of gas. Now, to be fair, Josh doesn't know that.
Right.
Cards left in hand for Luis are just a couple of lands, but boy, it sure is tempting if you're sitting in Josh's seat. If you have any way to just go ahead and get rid of that Trapper.
And he's got a follow-up here, too. He's got that Mammoth Spider. He's got the Llanowar Envoy with the Corrosive Ooze. If you, Luis is only doing this basically to, offer the 2 for 1. And I would just be so tempted to do this here and then just follow it up with another creature. Oh, and Josh getting very aggressive, also attacking the 2/3.
This is interesting because this is a potential window for Luis to try to weasel his way back into the game, because he's basically going to get to eat the Croson Druid for free. I'm putting it in air quotes. And that still preserves the trade the next turn with the champion, though This particular sequence works out beautifully for Josh because he is able to reestablish lethal even through the blocker.
Right, right. So he threw away his creature to get in for additional points of damage, and now if Luis draws nothing here, even if Luis blocks the biggest creature on the board, he will still take 5 damage.
Yeah, Luis actually did draw a spell on this turn. It was Syncopate, way too late.
Yeah.
So that is Josh Vitullo just knocking off the jitters.
Hall of Famer, whatever.
Just dispatches of Luis Scott-Vargas, although it's only game number 1, so we've still got a little bit more, of course, to bring you as Luis consults his sideboard and Josh does the exact same thing. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll have more live magic here from Pro Tour Dominaria. Don't go anywhere.
Fans are the people you want to hear because they are way more fans than there are Wizards employees, for one. And for two, they know what they want to see in this game. And so we have to listen. We are committed to listening to the fans, and we are committed to bringing this experience, an experience together that makes sense to the fans.
Coverage here at Pro Tour Dominaria. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Paul Cheon, and we are in round number 1 of our booster draft. We're going to pop right back over to Luis Scott-Vargas versus Josh Vitullo. If we get a chance, we will be checking in on one of our side matches. They are underway still. Ryoichi Tamada, you see him on the far right side of your screen playing against Vidianto Wijaya. Tamada picking up game number 1 there. And as we mentioned before, Josh Vitullo in his first Pro Tour has beaten Luis, at least in the first game, though beating Luis in a match is a much more, a much taller order. Wait a minute, are we seeing?
Josh's hand had Forest, Swamp, Steel Leaf Champion, and I think he drew...
He drew Forest, yeah.
This is the third 3 Steel Leaf Champion.
Wait, no,
What,
not that.
Okay.
Oh, he's playing around Syncopate?
Right, yes.
Okay, I like it, Josh. Yeah. I would have just slammed it.
Oh, the same.
Like, I didn't put it in my deck to not have a turn 3, 5, 4. Like, that's where it's best. But I totally understand where Josh is coming from here. Oh, man. Now he gets to play it, though.
Yeah. This is the opportunity. Fairly conservative line there.
So Josh's, instead of the Steel Leaf Champion, he ended up playing the Krosan Druid, which actually attacks nicely into Quende. Gets in for 2 damage. And it looks like Josh is actually going to prioritize being mana efficient, since I guess he figures that the Ooh, Baloth Gorger is similar enough to the champion, and he may be able to go like 3-drop, 2-drop next turn or something.
Yeah, but I am a fan of just getting in for any point of damage that I can. I
Agreed.
think that is quite important here, especially when you're playing against a blue-white deck that's just trying to tempo you out. You really need to just establish that board presence, and the more power, the better. But it actually looks like it worked out, because I thought he drew a corrosive ooze.
He did, but he didn't play it. What else does he have in his hand? Let's take a look and see what he's got. Well, it looks like Gift of Growth is what he wanted to keep up here. So he's looking to probably get into some type of tussle with Quende.
Yeah.
And actually win it, which is hard to do. A tempo play from Luis here could be pretty bad, though, for Josh. Let's see if he has maybe Time of Ice or something along those lines. Yeah. Ooh, he does actually have Time of Ice.
Yeah, it is just a little bit strange because Luis is playing a blue-white deck. There's not a lot of removal that you would want to keep up your combat trick for. This could easily be a situation where Luis just plays some creatures and says go, in which case you kind of wish you added a few more permanents to the battlefield. And I thought kind of the reason why he chose to play the Baloth Gorger over the Steel Leaf Champion was in case he was able, was to be able to put himself in a situation to double spell.
Yeah, but Luis, of course, the savvy veteran, sees the writing on the wall, says, no, I'm not going to fall for that. What instead I'm going to do is just load up. I'm going to play Weight of Memory, draw 3 cards, and not attack. So I'm going to strand some mana in your hand. In the meantime, Josh is going to be able to attack with Steel Leaf Champion. Luis, with no reasonable blocks there, is just going to take the full 5, and we're going to see the Gorger replayed, but again, that ominous 2 mana left over, which would represent a lot of different things in the format. Vicious Offering comes to mind, or the card that he has, Gift of Growth.
Yeah. So Luis does need to find a way to kind of turn this around. Josh does have 2 giant green monsters on the battlefield here. Take a look and see what Luis is working with here. Oh, and he's got a CCC card of his own here. Tempest Djinn.
Wow.
3 mana, 4/4 flyer.
And potentially bigger.
Yeah.
As the game grows on, every island will add an additional +1 to its power and create a real clock. And what Luis is setting up for here, and the reason that he's taken this line, is he wants to be able to have the most board presence possible and then cast his Time of Ice and let it just take over the game. Right now, he's going to try to leverage Befuddle on Josh's turn. He's trying to bait Josh into an attack. Look at that. Luis looks up at him. Is he going to fall for it here? Because if he does, he can really get Josh with that Befuddle. Let's see what happens. This is
What's that? Yeah.
Josh is very incentivized to attack here, and he's probably feeling a bit safe here, given that he's got that combat trick in his hand. But Luis has the trump here in the Befuddle.
Yeah, he kind of does, but this does get interesting because it just means that this is a trade in the end, right?
Right, because Josh can use the Gift of Growth and kick it to give it +4/+4. Oh no, it would not be right, because it would give it +4/+4 if Luis befuddles.
Yes, it would still survive. The champion would.
Right, and the Tempest Djinn would die.
That's right.
So now Luis probably won't even use the befuddle here.
He's probably just going to save it. So that works out well for Josh Vitullo. The only follow-up is an ooze, and Luis is just going to keep Befuddle in his hand. So, all told, a nice exchange for Josh.
Yeah. Great answer card out of Luis, though.
What did he find?
Looks like he drew an Icy Manipulator, which will do a
goodness.
lot of work here. He has a few removal effects. That is one of them, and it is the way that he can use to kind of help control the board that's on that's currently out there. Okay. And it actually combos very nicely with Time of Ice if he ever finds that card.
Yeah, he has some really interesting options here.
Does he have Time of Ice? Oh, yeah. He does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He can go Joyr's Familiar, then play the Icy for 3 and still activate it. He also can come up with a line where Merfolk Trickster comes in, and he can use some of his lesser creatures to trade off for the Steel Leaf Champion after it attacks. It will still be a 5/4, but it will be able to be blocked by his smaller creatures as well. Yeah. So he could put something like the Journey Mage plus a Trickster in front, if he's feeling that kind of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, Luis can set up a pretty insane Time of Ice here. The fact that, the third ability on Time of Ice says return all tapped creatures to its owner's hand, in conjunction with Time of Ice tapping 2 creatures and Icy Manipulator and the Trickster, he can potentially bounce Josh's entire board in one turn.
Yeah, and that is really powerful. You can set it up so that the time of ice happens, and then on end step you tap down something, and then on your upkeep, or excuse me, after the trigger goes on for time of ice, you do it. You could get 4 things.
Right.
And that's without Josh attacking. It's really disgusting. All right, it sounds like we've got Tim Willoughby, our sideline reporter, down in the feature match area with a little update on what's going on with one of our side matches.
Thanks, Marshall. We got a lot of action in our feature match area. It turns out there were 3 different drafters at this table that were some variation of blue-white. Vidi Wajaya against Ryuichi Tamada, blue-white versus blue-white-red, and it was Tamada picking up the game 1. His straightforward blue-white deck able to defeat the 3-color list on the other side of things. Then we had Chris Dockrell against Valerio Illuminati. Big busy board there where Slimeford ultimately took it down in game 1 for Illuminati. And on the back table, well, John Finkel's Khan had a lot of work to do against the red-black deck of Ren Min Jun. He got the Planeswalker down. He got a whole bunch of powerful rares down. It took everything he had to be able to get things going with Helm the Host to ultimately close things out in that game 1. Finkel leads 1-0.
Thank you, Tim. Back on our main match here, Luis gets some value from Befuddle. Sure, it wasn't the most important creature on the board, the Croson Druid, but he'll take it.
Yeah, you still take that, that nice little 2-for-1.
Yeah, definitely. And now Luis is starting, you can start to see the evil plan unfold here for Scott-Vargas as the Icy Manipulators keeping the Steel Leaf Champion down, and the combo that you mentioned a few minutes ago, Paul, will certainly come into play at some point. Though Luis does need a way to kind of back it up, like simply bouncing your opponent's board and then having them just replay it isn't a way to win a game.
Yeah, it looks like he's waiting for the right window for that time of ice. As of course, the Chapter 3 will trigger in a couple of turns, so he wants to make sure he has mustered up enough of an offense where after he bounces Josh's entire board, he's going to get in for a potential lethal attack.
Okay, Joyra's Familiar is going to be the play here for Luis, and that lets him play Time of Ice for 3 mana, which he's going to do. And he's deciding what to tap down now.
Yeah, I don't...
The champion.
Yeah, and I don't think he has a great attack here, so he's
going to sit back. Yeah, a kind of awkward situation with the Baloth Gorger, as returning it to Josh's hand might be actually a benefit to Josh.
Right.
Though I have to say, with the Icy Manipulator out there, spending an entire turn to kick a Baloth Gorger is not the all-time best anyway, so he might just, Luis might be fine with that anyway.
Yeah, I would guess that there's a decent chance, Josh just looks to empty out his hand and then use that Gorger as the last spell to play out of his hand.
Exactly. A nice one here for Josh, though. The time not really great for a Thallid Omnivore, given the Time of Ice is on the battlefield. But Omnivore can be a problem, and Josh's deck has produced a lot of very good threats here. He's got a 4/4, a 5/4, a 3/3 that can scale up really nicely, and even the Spider's a nice big 3/5 as well. So I'm impressed. Josh has put together quite a board state here.
Yeah, they are very shortly all going to be bounced. Does Luis have a decent attack here? It looks like he's got an attack with the Joyra's Familiar, as it does have flying, and he used the Time of Ice to tap down the Mammoth Spider. Ooh, he's getting real aggressive here.
Yeah, he's sending him in now. So that's going to put Josh down to 10. Josh does get to untap the Gorger and the Omnivore here, though.
Yeah, but it looks like Luis is trying to set up a lethal attack here, but that Icy, that is a little bit strange because he could have used that Icy to basically trade 1 mana for 4 mana, because next turn he would have been able to bounce Josh's entire board. So now what he can do is use the Merfolk Trickster, tap one of the cards, then on his draw step, when the Time of Ice triggers, with the trigger on the stack, he can use the Icy to tap down another creature to bounce an additional creature. But then he doesn't get the advantage of having that Icy up on his opponent's following turn when he starts dropping threats. So a bit aggressive to get in. I guess he did get to get in for 4 points of damage there.
Luis is surveying the scene here, reviewing his options.
Yeah, he probably just wants to use the Trickster to tap the biggest threat, which is the Thallid Omnivore.
That's right. Now, is he going to use the Icy? Let's find out.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, he has
oh,
a
yeah.
response. So he can pick. Well, the Gorger's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
he's
gonna
going to go ahead and do that. And now the ability from Time of Ice will resolve.
And boom, 4 creatures.
Wow, that is quite a setback here for Josh. And there's
and he found the
Jousting
Lance.
Lance too. Remember, Quende's still on the battlefield as well.
Yeah, that's 8 in the air just from the familiar. I mean, I think unless Josh has an instant speed removal spell, this is just lethal.
It is, yeah. That. Take a look at the battlefield here for Luis Scott-Vargas, and that's what a lethal attack force looks like up close and personal, Paul.
Yeah.
Quende, in conjunction with Jousting Lance, putting a very lethal force in the air. You can take a look at the blockers on the other side of the battlefield here for Joshua Vitullo, and no, not enough.
Yeah, so he can put the Thalit and the Corrosive Ooze on the 3/2 into Double Striker, and that's still 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage.
Some of you in chat may have perhaps realized that we've got some new camera technology that lets us look in. And it looks like Josh was willing to take the damage. Luis reminded him, well, my joy is familiar. Actually does pick up Double Strike thanks to Quende, Pride of Femeref. And that is game number 2 going to Luis Scott-Vargas. We will be using that camera, by the way, on our main match. We only have it set up on that one to zoom in on, certain aspects of the board state. And we are looking for feedback on it, too. If it was cool, what you think about it?
That was probably the best Time of Ice I've ever seen. That was insane.
Yes.
The Trickster with the Icy, just bouncing 4 creatures in one turn.
And he even set up lethal by spewing a little bit of the value by doing it on his turn. Like he could have even bounced one more creature. I don't think that's correct.
I think that Jousting Lance was a very big draw. Because I don't think he had that. Because he would have played it the previous turn, of course, on the familiar. Oh, this is a different Karn. Wait, were there 2 Karns in the draft? Oh, okay. I'm putting the pieces together. There's an Eldest Reborn in the graveyard, which I think was used to reanimate John Finkel's card.
Ren Mingjun kind of living the dream here, playing against John Finkel and getting his Planeswalker back on his side? That's incredible.
Oh, wow. He's going, stop hitting yourself, John.
But John is not messing around here either. He has Helm of the Host. And this on a Fire Fist Adept is a type of combo that can dominate a board, and it won't even take that long. He's already going to get to start throwing around chunks of 2 damage, but it's going to start growing from there. He ends up hitting the Rampaging Cyclops, and now he's going to attack with both of his Adepts, both of them at Karn, as you may have heard him say.
And I think John is also holding a Wizard's Bolt.
Wizard's Lightning.
Wizard's Lightning, rather.
Well, that would do it. He could use that.
Called it Bolt often as
any target
damage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he says, here, you can have your Karn back. Although this one does, of course, go to the graveyard. So John stems the bleeding there. And he still has a reasonable setup going forward as well. With the Helm of the Host, it can actually get equipped to that copy of Fire Fist Adept and still do its thing.
Yeah.
Helm of the Host is absurd.
That was a pretty insane turn.
Yeah.
And John is at a fairly comfortable life total here. So, as long as he can just get that Helm of the Host going, there's a very good chance that he can come back from this.
Yeah, especially now that the way is clear, right? Like, his opponent tapped a whole bunch of mana and left it so that John knows that he has the option of just equipping.
Yeah.
And like you said, it snowballed. I mean, this thing gets completely out of hand. He's producing 3/3s for free every turn, and they're going to start throwing around significant amounts of damage very quickly.
Yeah, this next turn is going to be a huge sequence because I think it's very likely that John's going to make a copy. And Ren really needs, if Ren can find a removal spell on this following turn, I think that might be enough to be able to take this down. But
yeah, and I mean, right away he can kill the Bloodstone Goblin and have 2 3/3s up to block,
Right.
that shores up the board right there.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, even the Ren won't have any good attacks with the Cyclops.
Yeah,
So
that's why he needs a removal spell here, so he can
Yeah.
at least get in a good attack with the Cyclops. But I think
Definitely.
we're going to see this Helm take over unless he finds a removal.
he's got the tome
he's
as
slow
well.
rolling himself.
Oh, I like this. Ren, he says, I need a removal spell.
That was
Was it
Swamp?
He played it very quickly. He's going to want to make sure he's careful about that so that he can continue to use Urz's tome
Ren
for
taking
value.
that.
Oh, he does have a removal spell, and in
Oh!
fact, it's the best one he can have. It's Fiery Intervention. He can use that to destroy an artifact and stop that long-term value.
Yeah, and now it looks like
We're
that's a
evened up.
Valak. Yeah, we're evened up, but
Yeah.
Ren does have a tome on the battlefield, so
Yep.
he can start filtering through all the lands in his deck. And John, 2 of the best cards in his deck, they're both in his graveyard. Both the Helm of the Host and the Karn.
Divination. Okay.
And a couple of cards off of a Divination, and he's doing well. That was a Fiery Intervention so that he can take out any real threats on the other side. And look at this, he has his own very good blocker here as well, the Rampaging Cyclops. Well, Paul, it looks like this one might actually go on for a little while here, and I see that our main table, Scott-Vargas versus Vitullo, is ready to go. So why don't we jump back up there? If this one's still going, we'll hop back over. But for now, I don't want to miss any of the action on our main table, as we saw Luis get kind of ran over in game number 1 and then produce some extreme tempo advantage in game number 2, thanks to Time of Ice, Icy Manipulator, and the Merfolk Trickster. Let's see if he's going to be able to do that again, or if another quick start here from Josh might get the job done. Boy, I got to say, if I'm in Josh's seat and I can defeat a Hall of Famer of this caliber in my first Pro Tour in my first round, I'd feel pretty darn good about myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Josh looking for that Steel Leaf Champion again.
I was going to say, it's interesting looking
Wait,
at the
he
land
has
drops
it?
early. He has it in his hand, and double Forest with another one in his hand.
Oh my goodness.
Is he
going
going to play into a potential syncopate this time?
He hasn't seen one in games 1 or 2, right? At this point, do you
no, Luis drew it in 1 and didn't play it. So
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
Do it.
Oh, he's going for it.
Oh, and it resolved.
Oh.
So Josh Vitullo with 7 power here on turn 3, and all Luis can do is run out. Well, he did first pick it 2 different times, the Dominant Trapper.
Yeah. Josh
This could
Vitullo
be over
bringing his
quickly.
mono green standard Stompy deck here into the draft. Turn 3
He does
Steel
know
Leaf
this
Champion.
is the limited portion of the tournament, right?
Yeah. Well, at least he didn't have the turn 1 Llanowar Elf to go with it, but wow.
Okay, this is going to give Luis a reprieve here. He's going to have actually a lot of time now, thanks to Time of Ice. Now, this isn't the ideal spot for it in the sense that he would rather do what he did before, which is set himself up to win rather than not die. But you know what? You do what you got to do, and Luis's deck has a lot of card draw in it with Divination and Weight of Memory. He can actually overcome the tempo deficit here as well. So this could work out well for him.
Yeah, this Time of Ice is going to gain him like 15 life.
Yes.
But it might still not be enough.
Yeah, he's already down to 8. He gets to tap down the Envoy here.
Yeah, but if you notice, Josh Vitullo's board has only green sources, and if you're wondering why that Vicious Offering was cast, he does have a Llanowar Envoy on the battlefield, which allows him to filter his mana.
Okay, looks like he decided to tap down the Spore Crown Thallid and bounce the Envoy. Yeah, those are both tapped still. Ooh, this could be a close one. Luis is definitely behind, 8-20 on life, and he knows the board states that's coming, but he's got all spells in hand, and he's got a Trickster, he's got a Snapper, he has a Divination to reload. He does have the tools to keep this game going as long as Josh doesn't kind of get out so far ahead that Luis just can't recover.
Yeah, the problem here is Luis does still need to find a way to get through for damage. Josh is very, very ahead on life totals, and he's still going to have this Spider just keeping everything at bay. And, you know, like Luis needs to find a way to kind of turn this game around because Josh is going to just untap and start playing all his fatties again. If he can find, for example, the Arcane Flight to pair with that Cold Water Snapper, that would be huge.
You can tell Luis is concerned here as he awaits his fate. Josh deciding what cards he wants to cast. It looks like he's going to go with the Envoy here rather than just casting the Spider. It's tempting to just land that Spider while Luis is tapped out and you just know you can cast it. And he's just going to do that. Josh passes the turn back.
And Luis is going to do that
Luis?
same trick we've seen before. He's got that Trickster, right?
Yep, he does.
Trigger, bounce the team.
Wow, so the entire team goes away. That means that Luis is going to be able to get in for 3 damage, but really he wants to set himself up to power through to the late game. He's going to need to cast that Divination soon and see if he can't find some removal or more things to add to the board to block a Steel Leaf champion, because as you mentioned, this board state as it sits, this is not going to get the job done as far as actually winning the game for Luis.
Yeah.
Not a bad turn from Josh. Just 7 power again, thank you.
Yeah, and Josh is still at a pretty comfortable life total. And again, Luis needs to find a way to attack through that that Mammoth Spider that's going to hit the board.
That's right.
It basically brick walls the entire team that Luis has.
The good news for Luis is that he's in a pretty good position now defensively where he even has a reasonable trade for the Steel Leaf champion. The only card he'd be worried about is Gift of Growth. And, oh, now that I say that, Josh has it in his hand.
Right, and if I'm in Josh's side, I am actually interested in trading my Steel Leaf champion for the Snapper because one of the few ways you can lose this game is if Luis finds, on Sarah's Wings or an Arcane Flight and put it on that Snapper.
I'm with you. I think I would be fine with that because he doesn't know Luis's list, and we know he doesn't have it on Sarah's Wings, but boy, it would be devastating if he did. Here's Divination now for Scott-Vargas, right where he wants to be in life, but let's see if he can find a way to power through and overcome this massive board state that Josh has put out again.
I'm actually very surprised at that Steel Leaf champion.
Oh, he found the Arcane Flight.
Oh, no.
As you said, this is one of the ways that this can go poorly for Josh. He didn't offer the trade, and he is now on a 2-turn clock in the air.
Jeez.
By the way, we just had Kenji Egashira come up to the booth and wave a match slip in our face, so it looks like he picked up his first win.
First Pro Tour.
Congratulations to Kenji. We know that a lot of our members of chat are interested in how he's doing, so I guess we get an impromptu update here on the air because he was waving that thing around like a flag.
Yeah. He had a spicy one, too.
This deck looked very good.
Yeah. All right. And this is one of those games where, Luis is like, yep, I put the Arcane Flight and the 2 Snappers in because every now and then I just wanted to get my opponent. Very few ways to deal with this. Josh now needs to basically keep up his mana
So
to block and then kick Gift of Growth to block with the Snapper. But if he keeps up 4 mana, I just don't think Luis attacks. Luis just continues to add to the board. So this is a very tricky spot.
Interesting as well is that Luis has an ability to interact with that somewhat. He has the Merfolk Trickster. The downside is that Gift of Growth is the exact card that Luis is worried about, and it doesn't care about Merfolk Trickster particularly. Though reach matters, right? So he could at least use it to get in for 1 attack. All right, so what is Luis going to do here? He's going to Trickster post-combat.
Post attacks and remove the ability on the Steel Leaf champion.
Post declare attackers, right? And then he's going to just double block 2. Useless is probably strong, but relatively useless creatures.
So this puts him dead to Gift of Growth, so he has to block. And then so now Josh can use the Gift of Growth to save his Steel Leaf champion.
Luis might actually double block both big creatures and kind of force Josh to decide how he wants to use it, saying you can't have both.
Right.
Like if you want to save your Steel Leaf champion, well, you're losing your Spider. And if you want to save the Spider, Steel Leaf champion's dying.
Yep.
And frankly, at this point, it's a really tough spot for Josh because he does not want to lose that Spider, but if he's forced to use his removal spell, or excuse me, his pump spell here, he won't have a realistic way to interact with the big turtle.
Yes, at that point you're just looking to straight up race.
These blocks look fantastic for Luis.
No, that's fine.
He's just ordering. He doesn't need to kick this Gift of Growth to keep either of his creatures alive, which means he can add more to the board here as well. Like he can play Gift of Growth and also play the Llanowar Envoy this turn. Because it looks like he doesn't have actual black mana. I think he has all forests. And I mean, that's also the kind of the cost that you pay for looking to play Steel Leaf champion on turn 3. I'm assuming Josh has something like 10 or 11 green sources in his deck, for example, and similar to Luis.
Yeah, you'd hope so anyway.
Yeah. Don't think the old 9-4 Steel Leaf Champion plan is the best one.
No, I mean, the truth is that you don't have to cast Steel Leaf Champion on turn 3 for it to be good, but that's where the real heart of its power lies.
That's where you do start picking up kind of those quote-unquote free wins, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just playing a creature so amazing on rate. And that's the thing. These creatures are so good on rate that even if you play any of them on turn 4, they're still great.
Tough spot here for Josh. He's looking and I think he's perhaps regretting a little bit the attack with the spider because, like, what is his game plan now against the snapper? He can chump block with the spider once, but he will not have a reasonable way. So now he's forced into a situation where he has to race, and he might be able to win it. Like, don't get me wrong, that might absolutely work. Luis is going to need to put out more on the board, but it's the kind of thing where even a few chump blockers for Luis can produce a board state that Josh can't beat.
And at this point, so yeah, now Luis is weighing his options. He's like, do I want to set up a situation where it's like a 2-turn clock where if I attack this turn, if I attack with the snapper twice, it's lethal. At the same time, Josh does have the option of just blocking that spider 1 turn and also counterattacking. Luis does have a Quende in his hand, however, which you can use to basically shut down either of the other creatures on the battlefield. So I think attack is what you want to do here, but it is close.
Luis does attack and really put the pressure on Josh. I think another dynamic that could be at play here from Luis's perspective is that Josh is in an awkward position without black mana. He can make some with the Envoy, but it really does kind of limit how many spells he can cast. And I bet you Luis is very suspicious that those are mostly black spells in hand for Josh, which they are.
And now if you're on Josh's side, you have to be a little bit concerned here. I think he was considering the block there because if he does take the damage this turn, this gives Luis a lot of value. Luis draws something like an Icy Manipulator or some bounce effect. He really wishes that he got the block in when he could, because now Luis is just representing lethal here. He has a way to deal with this Mammoth Spider.
But he's going down to 1.
He's going down to 1, so if Josh has a way to pump one of his creatures,
he's basically
that will be it.
Anything to interact here, gain some life. Pump spell. Blocker for the anything he could do, and he might be able to sneak this one out, but it's looking like Luis Scott-Vargas on the thinnest of margins may have stolen
so
this
close.
one. Icy Manipulator was a fantastic draw for Luis there, both nullifying an attack from attack that he really needed to nullify and also clearing the way for lethal damage in the air next turn. I don't see any way out for Josh at this point given his hand.
Yeah, Luis absolutely needed to find a way to interact with Josh's board, and he drew the perfect card.
Unbelievable. This was about as close as they get. Again, Josh, now in desperation mode, has to crack that Memorial and just try to see if there's anything he can find. Something.
Enter the battlefield, drain you for 1.
Oh, he found a Spore Crown Thallid.
Wait, that's lethal.
That is good enough. If he casts that, it'll pump the other Spore Crown Thallid, and he can attack for lethal damage. He did it.
He found the card.
Josh
that might be his one card.
Did not give up, and he has found lethal, and he defeats Luis Scott-Vargas by the narrowest of margins, attacking for exactly lethal damage. Not a bad way to win your first match at the Pro Tour, Josh. Well done. That was about as close as they get. I am in shock right now.
It was the 5th card down, too.
It was
with
the last
Memorial.
one. We're like, nope, that's not it. No, wait a minute.
Wait.
And Luis exits the feature match area, having lost that match so narrowly. Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Way to start off your first Pro Tour, huh?
I got to say, really smart there from Josh not to just give up and just to say, well, I'll just look. Maybe there's something. Yeah. All right, it sounds like we have an update from Tim Willoughby down in the feature match area.
Yeah, we're thick in Game 3 now for John Finkel, and he's been up against a little bit. Rain Minjun's deck has a lot of removal. Game 2, Mingjun was able to win out with Fight with Fire kicked. He knows that one's coming. Caligo's Skinwitch has already forced him to discard his Helm of the Host as he was desperately hunting for mana to get his Khan cast. Things are looking pretty tight here going down to this game as we join.
take a look at what's going on here, Paul. How about haphazard bombardment, putting counters on a few of the permanents left, and we're going to roll a die to see if we can kill Karn, or as it sits, a 3-3.
Yeah, at the moment we just do a live look in, it's just Ren just rolling some die.
Yeah, I know which one I would pick between the two.
Yeah. Karn is giving John a steady source of card advantage here. Here we go. Yep.
Oh, and he missed.
That is rough.
And that means that Karn is going to be the last one with that counter on it, and he won't be able to roll anymore. So Karn dodges the haphazard bombardment and gets to survive.
Karn is very stealthy, very good at dodging.
Indeed. You wouldn't think so looking at him.
No, but
Deceptively quick. And here's Adeliz, the Cinder win now for Finkel. He's going to start chipping it in the air. He's got a lot of work to do to win this match. He's got to win this game from 20 here for Ren, so we've got some time. And we're going to probably see unwind here out of John Finkel. He's deciding if he wants to protect Adeliz or not, and he says, yeah, you know, you don't want to find yourself in a position where the game ends and you're just staring at an unwind. And Adeliz is worth protecting, though, to be honest, not super important on this board. She's attacking for 2 in the air. Good, but, you know.
yeah. But John's like,
Oh,
no.
Fight with fire or deep freeze. Ren says, I guess you can have the deep freeze, but that means that fight with fire likely going into hand next turn.
Right.
Okay, this one, it feels like we may have come in at the critical juncture, shall we say.
Ooh, and that's an extra mana source that's going to get John closer to kicking that fight with fire.
That actually got him to
exactly. Okay.
Yes, that was the one that he needed. In the meantime, a big attack here. John played Warlord's Fury pre-combat there.
Giving all his team first strike, and more importantly, both of the 2 wizards that John has on the battlefield, +1/+1.
That's right.
Both the Gitu Chronicler and Adeliz, the Cinderwind, getting pumped. And he's holding an unwind for protection. Oh, no, he used the unwind. But he still has Shivan Fire as an additional way to pump his creatures.
It looks like Ren is just going to use fungal infection here to try to set up a massive block on the Cyclops. But Adeliz still getting in the air, and John has the ability to break up the multi-block there by killing Cabal Evangel.
Yeah, and his Rampaging Cyclops will survive this attack now.
That's right, because of first strike. So that's a bit of a blowout there as John maintains impressive board state. Now, the follow-up play, perhaps not as exciting, but again, we've mentioned it before. Karn, though, he's got a little action on layaway there.
And he's got Wizard's Lightning going straight to the face.
Upstairs with it?
Go 3U,
Yeah, he's got
get fight with fire 10.
Game.
That's it.
That's game. He's just going to kick fight with fire. The colors that Ren's in don't have anything to do with it. He extends the hand, and John Finkel finds the win. Again, thanks to that slippery Karn there, was able to not get haphazardly bombarded, and he was able to ride that wave of value to the win, and in impressive fashion too. I mean, that was some of his most powerful stuff from Finkel there.
Yeah, his deck is just so strong. It's just chock full of power. That pack 3 was completely absurd. He got the best blue-red uncommon.
Yeah.
He got the best red uncommon. He got a 3rd pick Shivan Fire. And the whole time, I mean, this is one of the few times where I was looking at John during the draft, and he actually made some reaction. He was like, what is going on? My deck is so powerful.
Yeah. You don't see that often from Finkel, but even he had to react to that one because the pack was so good. That, of course, is only the first round of action here from a long day on Friday from the Pro Tour. We'll be back with more draft after these messages.
Up your game with Ultra Pro Magic the Gathering accessories. Find the best Magic art on card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and more. Visit ultrapro.com to learn more and find a retailer near you.
So we opened up our coverage here in round one with two of the greatest players of all time, Luis Scott-Vargas and John Finkel. One win, one loss. Well, what do all these players have in common? Kai Buddha, Owen Turtenwald, Eric Froelich, Willie Adel, Paul Rietzel, Shuhei Nakamura, Guillaume Waffa-Tapper, and John Finkel. Well, they're all Hall of Famers. They all won their first round. How about this list of players? Luis Scott-Vargas, Tsuyoshi Fujita, Shota Yasuoka, Jelga Vigasma, Ben Rubin, Martin Yuza, Ben Stark, Paulo Vita Dama de Rosa, Rafael Levy, Kenji Samura. Well, they're all Hall of Famers, and they lost their first round. So with 18, 19 results in for the Hall of Famers, they're less than 50% in round one. And that's just how hard it can be at Pro Tour level. So hats off to Josh Vitolo there in round number one. In his first PT, the 31-year-old making it as the PTQ winner from Grand Prix Hartford. He made it in and made the most of his first round opportunity. Now, earlier this week, I got a Twitter message and someone said, look, one of my best friends, Kenji Egashira, he's playing in his first Pro Tour. Could you feature him? Could he be the drafter? And I said, well, look, bit of a problem with that. 200 of the best players in the world are sort of the top half of the field. So for us to say, yeah, let's make the live drafter someone playing in their first PT, chances are we probably wouldn't do that. And indeed, well, we ended up with Finkel and LSV in the feature pod, of course. But I know a lot of you care very much how Kenji Egashira is doing. So we are setting up down on the floor. I can tell you his first round is done. We do like to check in on people who are playing in their first PT, especially when they know they're as good as Kenji Egashira. Of course, he's known as a drafter. So how did he do? We'll find out in just a moment or two. Meanwhile, I just want to take you back a few minutes. Remember that thing we did where we asked players about Navigator's Compass? Was the answer one? Was the answer basically none? Or was the answer as many as you can get? In round two, we're going to feature someone who shows as many as you can get. It is a nuts deck. You will want to see round number two when it comes along. But ready for us on the floor, playing in his first Pro Tour, coming out of his first ever Pro Tour match, is Brian David Marshall with Kenji Egashira.
Thanks, Rich. I'm here on the floor with Kenji Egashira. Kenji, I'm happy to report that you are currently the most successful Kenji in this tournament.
Yeah, he was actually sitting right next to me in the draft pod, so I was passing to him initially, but, I mean, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Now, Kenji, you've been playing at tournaments that you could qualify for a Pro Tour at for about 7 years.
Yeah, my first GP was Montreal 2011. I went 6-3 with a busted deck because I played terribly, and it was a heartbreaker.
So now, finally get to the Pro Tour. What's that first round like? Were there any jitters? I mean, obviously you're a very confident performer when you're playing Magic, but were there any jitters as you sat down for your first round of the Pro Tour?
No, I wasn't nervous at all. Like, I qualified through the mocks, and so I think that was the big tournament for me. This was just gravy on top, so I'm just here having a good time, you know, doing whatever, sightseeing beautiful Richmond, Virginia, but yeah, no nerves.
All right, so no nerves. You play your first round. How does that first game of Magic on the Pro Tour end for you?
Remember, this is Dominaria draft. I think our first game was 30 minutes long or something. My opponent ended up scooping because they were going to deck before I was. In the game, I had cast 3 Tadiovas actually. One got exiled, one got killed. The third time I brought it back with Rona, cast again, it died instantly again. Fortunately, my opponent also had Tadiova, and that stayed on the battlefield for a few turns, and they outdrew me. And then we were looking at our libraries. He's like, oh, yeah, I have 7, and I have 9. And so, 5 turns later, he's like, okay, I concede.
Yeah, and decking was something clearly on your mind, because there's an opportunity in that round where you could have bounced your Rona and played Tatiova a 4th time.
Yep. Well, see, I'd already looked at quite a few cards in my library by scrying twice with Cloud Reader Sphinxes and Opt as well. So I knew a lot of the bottom cards were just dead cards anyways, and there was no rush to get through them. There was no card that was going to push me over the top. I knew In Bolas's Clutches was, I think, 5th from the bottom, from Memorial to Unity or something like that completely whiffed. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just draw the In Bolas's Clutches with 5 cards left in my library, take whatever that's going to kill me, because I was at 24 and he was at 20 on turn, 30 of the game, so it was just absurd.
Now, game 2, I turned around for a second, came back, and it was done.
Oh yeah, I just crushed him. It was just, let's see, I curved out, played Eldest Reborn when they had a Rampaging Cyclops. He got stuck on mana, and then I just played a Cold Water Snapper, and that's all.
All right, Kenji Egashira off to a 1-0 start here at Pro Tour Dominaria.
So it turns out sometimes if you ask us to put someone on camera, we do it for you. Aren't we just lovely? Well, it's time to go deep now into our first draft archetype of the weekend. Now, usually at a Pro Tour, it's a new format. We know lots of you haven't drafted yet, but this time around, we're guessing that most of you have. So we wanted to go a little bit deeper into one of those archetypes that isn't just a straightforward two-color pair, but actually has a few little tips and tricks up its sleeve. So it's time to go deep with Saproling Spawning.